everybody. Well, we're going to do kind of another underwater scene in continuation of the tropical fish. Just give it a different kind of underwater feel. So I have a big-ish brush and I'm going to get a little bit of water on my canvas just so we can work with it fairly quickly. Sometimes the canvas is a little dry. It's coated with gesso and sometimes it repels the paint. So I'm just going to touch into a little bit of the darker blue. And I'm going to touch into this aqua color that I have. Kind of tinted a different color. And I may need to go over this a little bit more. And touch into a little bit of white and a little bit more of that aqua color. My white paint is a little clumpy, so all right, and I also have a little too much water going on in this. Okay, so I'm just kind of forcing these two colors together so that they start to kind of gradient down. So I'm going back and forth over them several times to really kind of get the streak marks out and also give it a really nice just gradient. All right, so now I've got my water above and now I want to add a little bit of some sand below. So I'm just going to clean my brush out and add a little bit of white and a little bit of raw sienna, which is a really nice beach color. And my white is a little clumpy, which is great. I'm being sarcastic. It sucks when that happens. And I have a little touch of the previous color in my brush, and I'm okay with that. So I'm just softening up the bottom. And then I'm going to try to get it to blend at the very base, just so it feels like the ocean floor. Kind of like in our previous, or kind of like in the previous video. All right, so I have a pretty good base, and what do I always say? Let's let it dry. All right, it is dried, and now I want to build up some coral, but I want to block out the background, so I'm going to dip this kind of stubby brush into some white, and I'm just going to start to tap the canvas. And I think I'm going to be painting these kind of a fluorescent pink and a fluorescent orange, possibly even work a little bit of the yellow into there. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, we've got our coral over here. I'll maybe build a little tiny one just in the back. I want to build up some kind of sea anemone over here. And just gonna add a little bit of white to a different brush. All right, and we want to, of course, let that dry. But before we let it dry, we want to add maybe some seaweed. But I'm going to just let this dry for a second and take a little break. All right, so I wanted to get some fluorescent colors for my next steps, but I also wanted to create a brown. So I used a little of this fluorescent orange and a little bit of this blue to get kind of a brown color so that I could build up maybe just a few rocks or reef. I'm just taking my brush and kind of blobbing it on. Maybe these little sea anemones are hanging on to this coral reef that's here. And, you know, maybe we'll get a couple little rocks here and there. You know, it's the bottom of the ocean, so... Okay, so I'm just going to let this sit for a little while, and then I might apply another coat for it. And sorry about that, the light was a little farther away than I wanted it to be, so hopefully you see this better now. Okay, I want to figure out a nice green that I can use for my seaweed, and I want it to be a little darker because I want it to kind of go back and behind. So I'm going to take a little bit of this yellow raw sienna and a little bit of this bright green and maybe just a little touch of this blue to kind of darken it up a little. Maybe just a little touch of that fluorescent yellow, that might give it a nice brightness. Alright, I'm thinking a little too bright. Tone it down with the blue and use some more of this. Alright, so I just want to take my brush and just kind of drag it up. And maybe cross over. And just keep going. And I don't want to do it all. I want to leave a little bit of space. But maybe this is the edge of where the kelp bed is. Maybe some little wispy ones here. All right, maybe just one more. All right, so that's going to be off into the background. We're going to let that dry, and then we'll maybe add a little lighter of a green. Okay, so we want to go ahead and start building up our coral on the right. And I'm going to clean off that little stubby brush and really make sure I get the water out of it. When you stipple, you don't really want a lot of water in your brush. You want it to be kind of dry so it deposits the paint a little easier into the canvas or the section that you're working on. Alright, so I want to start off with a little bit of yellow. I'm going to dab into that color and then force it into my brush. And I'm just going to add a couple of dabs of this yellow here and there on my coral. Alright. I'm going to wipe off a little bit of this yellow and dip into a little bit of orange. And my brush does not want to stay attached. Alright, I'm just going to use the end of the brush till I glue it back or something. Alright, so I got a little bit of the orange. I'm just adding it throughout. Still leaving some space because I want to add a little bit of the pink color to this. Oh, that is a big blob I did not want. Okay. It's gone. Alright, I'm going to wipe off the orange and I'm going to add a little bit of the pink. And I really liked the pink and I wanted the coral to be pinker. So I'm really going to try to add a lot of this. Letting some of those previous colors sort of poke through. And if you go into the blue with this color, it actually turns a little bit purple. So it gives it another layer of color that you didn't expect. All right, so I have my pink on there, and I want to try to put this brush in the water, even though it's popping off and it's disassembling. Okay, so now I want to go back in with my long skinny brush, and I want to add a little bit more white and maybe a little bit of this yellow. And I feel like I want a little bit of a fluorescent purple on here. I'm just gonna add a little tiny bit. And I don't know, I may let this dry and then add more white over it, but for some reason I had these colors in my mind. Maybe just to have kind of the iridescent feel to it. And I don't know, I'm kind of vibing the pink. So maybe we'll just touch into a little bit of pink and see if that gives it a new dimension to it. And I don't know, I was thinking earlier adding a little starfish. So I could just add a little starfish right here at the bottom. Just gonna kind of block out the background first. And we could probably add a couple of them. Why not? Bottom of the ocean. All right, and we'll let that sit for a little while before we add any color onto it. All right, I let this dry just a little, and also just wanted to take a break. And now I want to paint in my little starfish. So I'm going to start off with pink. We'll just make this one pink, balance the middle. And just follow my little lines. All right, I may need another coat for that, not sure yet. All right, I want to make a orange one. And I want to make a yellow one. All right, I may need some more coats of paint on that one. But I want to go back into this section and add a little bit more yellow to this and probably a little bit more pink. And I just want to tap a little bit of pink onto this rock. Maybe these are, you know, like barnacles or little baby of these plants. All right, so I want to let all that bottom section dry. And I want to add a little bit of water and a little bit of white. so that it's watered down and becomes translucent. And I want to take this and I want to start from the top and kind of create this translucent light that's coming through. I've got some strong bands just to kind of build up the shape of it. And then I'm going to go back into a little bit of water and soften this up a little. Just add a little bit of light shining in. Nice and diffused. Okay, so now I want to add a little bit of a lighter green into the seaweed. So I'm going to mix a little of that fluorescent green and a little bit of that fluorescent yellow, and I added just a little tiny dab of white. And I'm just streaking these in to a couple of places where the light would hit these little bits of seaweed. And just giving it another dimension. And I'm trying to focus on the right side because the light source is coming from here. And I'm just taking my brush and I'm kind of twirling it as I go up, and that was just a little too much. So I just wipe it off. All right, so we actually kind of have the fish from the fish project from before. So now we have a completely different habitat for these little fishes. And it's kind of funny. It's like Finding Nemo and Dory. I forgot to mention that in the other video, but it is kind of like Finding Nemo. Going on an adventure. Yay, swim, swim, swim. Anyway, you guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, hopefully you've liked it, you've subscribed so you can get more of these. And please do so, because I'll keep doing these videos. So if you want to share it with somebody and somebody that might appreciate it, I would very much appreciate that. But anyway, you guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.